Here we go. All right. I am also going to share my screen. Ooh, there we go. Okay.
Is that music?
No, but I can sing if you need me to. Feliz Navidad. Come on, Graciela. Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
That's all I know.
But the musician is Bruce.
Oh, that's
So,
right.
Come on, Bruce.
Yeah, take it away, Bruce.
Gee, no, thank you.
Okay, so because my screen is pretty full, Cara, can I ask you to let the people in as they pop in?
Yeah, let's just get the participant bar open. Stephanie and Graziella, since we're recording, if you don't want to be on camera, you can turn off your camera. But if you do, that's great, because we're gonna have a conversation.
That's right. Okay. So, I can start. I'm going to move this here. So my name is Dominique Chabot. I am the Family Support Manager with Autism Canada. I have 2 children on a spectrum. One's 18, one is 11. I have a husband who's on the spectrum. And I have a background in psychology. I have to read this because sometimes I forget. Autism behavioral science, human resources. And I've been with Autism Canada. I'm on my 5th year. Cara?
Oh, just as I take a sip of something. Not timing on my part. My name is Cara. I am a university lecturer, elementary school teacher, and author, and I'm also autistic.
Yay. Hi, my name is Bruce Petherick. I'm the autistic advocate at Autism Canada. And before I worked at Autism Canada, I was a musician. And Christmas time was not a favorite time of the year for me.
It was busy, I imagine.
Hmm.
Well, on a lighter note, we are going to talk today about preparing for a sensory-friendly holiday. And essentially what that means is, we get calls, we get emails from whether it's caregivers on how to create a safe space for their relative who is coming and they have a child on the spectrum, or they have a youth or an adult on the spectrum. So that could be whether it's a menu, whether it's what do I purchase for, my autistic grandchild. All of these questions come in quite often, and we do answer them. And actually, I created a script because it is that common. So we have a script that's specific with resources and links to different sites based on the question that comes in, and to provide these individuals with the kind of resources that they need. So what you're going to see come through here are very common questions. And the way we're going to respond today is I am going to offer my perspective as a caregiver of children on the spectrum. And of course, my lived experiences in the past when I didn't know as much as I know today. Cara, what kind of perspective will you offer today?
I will offer a personal perspective. I will offer things that I've heard from my students. Coming from a large neurodivergent friendly family, I can talk about things that my parents have done, that other family members have done to support making holidays. And it doesn't matter what the holiday is. If I'm talking about Christmas, I think all of the tips we're going to give apply to any celebration, any party, because there are things about those events, no matter how enjoyable they may be to someone, there's also a lot of stress involved in holidays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Bruce, what kind of perspective will you provide us today?
Probably similar to Cara, maybe speaking on behalf more of the autistic adult. Because there's things, one of the things I deal with quite a lot is a number of autistics do have questions about the holiday and the traditions that maybe don't make sense. Simple things like why do we give people gifts? So things like that.
Yep. Perfect. So we hope that this is going to be a very insightful Q&A presentation, very casual. And if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Bruce, would you like me to make you co-host as well? Would that help at all? Or do we want to leave it in Kara's hands?
Kara's doing a brilliant job.
Pretty quickly.
Okay, excellent. All right, so the first question is, how can we create a sensory-friendly environment during the holidays, or during holiday gatherings to accommodate individuals with different sensory sensitivities? So, Bruce, you go first.
Okay. Honestly, this is a very common question, and it has a multifaceted response, but it's actually quite simple.
Mm-hmm.
When you're planning for a gathering and you know that there are individuals with some sensitivities, go through a checklist in your head that relate to the senses. So that the easy ones that people kind of can fix up really quickly is the lighting too bright? Or very importantly, can it be adjusted? Now, even right now, I'm fiddling with my light, just make sure I'm looking beautiful and as handsome as I possibly can. But it's things like that. Is it too bright? Can you turn things down? Is it too dark? Sometimes people want a little bit of extra light. Just look at things like that. Can you move lamps around with lights?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds. One of the things that really, I was going to say bugs me, but that's not fair. But one of the things I've very much struggled with is going to a friend's house for a gathering and there's background music on, and the music is a little loud for me, and so therefore all I can focus on is the music. Be aware of that. Be aware that holiday music is really super useful for getting people in the mood and to set the setting of your gathering. But just be careful that it's not maybe too constant and maybe too loud. I could answer this question for the next hour. So let me pass another answer on to Kara. I've done the simple ones.
The same thing about background music. For me anyways, it is easier if it doesn't have singing. Like if I'm trying to listen to someone talk and there are voices in the music, I can't always separate it, or I have to have it at a really low volume. I think the most important, because every neurodivergent person is different. You're going to have people who love lights and watching the Christmas tree lights or whatever lights they might have, who love all the smells, who love the tastes. And you might have people who are averse to some of those things. The most important element, as I see it, is making sure there are opportunities for breaks, that there's a place neurodivergent folks can go just to get, be relieved of some of that overstimulation that happens when we're expected to engage and there's new foods and smells and lights and decorations and noises and lots of socializing. We need breaks. One of the best things in my family, usually halfway through a celebration, I will find myself in the basement with all of my neurodivergent, cousins, nibblings, like just in a dark room, but with reduced expectations for any socializing. Having an out makes it significantly easier to get through those events, just knowing you can step away for a little bit, knowing what, I think for children, letting them know, like, this is where you can go, this is what you can do, if they're allowed to have a device with them, and whatever it is, and how long they can take that break for is really important. So always have that kind of plan in mind before events.
I concur with both your suggestions, and one that I remember when my oldest was getting a little bit older, he needed those breaks. He needed those sensory breaks, and if he didn't have them, then clearly he would demonstrate, unwanted behavior, and it's the last thing you want, especially with our family. We're French Italian, so we're loud and we drink and we listen to music, and it's just natural for us to be loud and everything else. And ironically, for my oldest, that was a bit difficult growing up, especially during the holiday season. So as Kalem got older, what we did is we had a knapsack with everything he needed, including noise canceling headphones, his whatever device he was playing with at the time, a lot of fidgets, and a little tent. And you can get these little tents, these little pop-up tents. You can get them, and they were for kids, but it's small enough to fit in a knapsack because it folds up, but it's big enough that when it does bloom up, it's their own little space. So when you're talking about kids, as a caregiver, I highly recommend the tent, and then making sure they know that they can go in there and use it anytime. And as a neurotypical, whether you're an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent who's hosting the event, do not feel offended that the individual needs to have these sensory breaks, because in order for them to be able to keep going with the get along, like the gathering or the party, the get along gang, the gathering or the party or anything else, they need those breaks probably very often. So, and don't be insulted. It's normal. It's completely normal, and it's needed.
I'm glad you said that, because that was something I wanted to emphasize, that autistics often feel we need permission to take these breaks. And that can be a little awkward. And actually stressful to have to sort of think about removing yourself. But I think what Dominique has just said is people tend to be a lot more forgiving of children's behaviors. And Kara's on my point, I think, is that autistic adults also need these breaks. And sometimes it's actually more, I feel I'm offending somebody if I have to, like for me, it's usually to go outside temporarily. And then sort of people sort of will go, well, what's happened to Bruce? Is he okay? And the answer is, I'm not okay, but I'm getting okay by removing the too much sensory input. So as a host, doubly emphasizing what Dominique's saying, do not take offense if an autistic individual, and you're a divergent individual, needs to take a sensory break.
Thank you, Bruce.
Another point, building off what Bruce just said, is often we don't like to be noticed. Like, we don't like to be noticed doing something different. For instance, I have sat in my car, like, after having bought lunch, and if there's someone in the car next to me, I won't back up until they leave. I've almost been late getting back to work because I don't like to be observed doing things, even though I'm fine at not, getting out of a parking spot. But just having an observer there, it just ups my stress level so much. So even at Christmas or another holiday, like, if there was getting up to leave and do something different that other people are not doing, I might try and sit through it and be deeply uncomfortable.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing your perspective. What are some effective ways to communicate with a family member about the needs of a neurodivergent relative during the holidays? I love this question because I feel like it's never asked enough. I'd like to start with this one, if that's okay.
Sure.
I love when someone says, okay, Dominique, what do you need for us to have to, accommodate the boys? So do you want to bring their own supper? Do you want us to make something different for them? And this, again, is not just over the holiday season. This is all year. The one good thing I have to say about my in-laws is that They are great cooks, but sadly, my kids are extremely picky, and they're always like, I have a backup, we have a backup in case they don't like it. And it's stuff that they love, like pogos or nuggets or whatever, which is fantastic. Having said that, if you know that you will be hosting an event, a supper or a holiday party, and there is going to be, you know, whether someone who is diagnosed, or, you know, you suspect they might be, but they're not either diagnosed or they're not coming out stating that they are on the spectrum or neurodivergent. It's always important to kind of keep that in the back of your mind and do your best to say, you know, to accommodate them in any way. Ask them if they're older, ask them, how can I make this event you know, easy on you? Because we know how you don't like big crowds or loud, you know, or loud crowds or certain foods. So you tell me what it is that you need, or you can ask the parents as well. What is it that we can do to help make the event fun for the kids as well? That's my 2 cents.
Okay, this might be an autistic thing, but I have a preference for direct communication. So I would have no problem just saying to people, you know, these are the needs and this is how we accommodate for them. Just saying it like it is. This is what is helpful. You know, giving people the information, I think is helpful. I think it's helpful for people to know. I don't think we should talk about these things like they're shameful or that it's anything to be embarrassed about. We're just sort of normalizing there's no normal and everyone needs different things.
Yeah.
The normalization is important, and this is a you know, it's part of one of the most important parts of my job is to show and emphasize the normalization of the autistic experience. It is difficult sometimes to raise this in new situations, and I wish that people, exactly as Cara said, the direct communication is important. And I will share something. My family was invited to a event last Christmas period, and this was a new friend, and we were told there were going to be like 8 people. So I have to prepare, and all my family are neurodivergent. So all of us were sort of preparing 8 people. We know these people. We, you know, in our heads, we're practicing. On the way there, we got told that they had changed their mind. There was like 35 people. We turned the car around because I at that stage, there was no way I could have handled that many new people in such a short time. Now, if I'd been given 3 or 4 days notice, maybe I could. But I honestly felt that we offended the people because we didn't turn up. But you would have had 4 people like just incredibly stressed at that.
That makes sense.
So that open discussion, open communication, but hopefully not when the person turns up, but before the fact, if possible.
I just want to share something in the chat. Katrina said, whether the person has a food allergy or a neurodivergent food aversion, it shouldn't matter. So spot on.
Yep. And, you know, as I'm listening to you, and when I gave my 2 cents, I keep thinking about that generation that doesn't necessarily understand, especially, you know, and I'm in my late 40s. So I'm thinking, okay, my grandparents, my great aunts or uncles who are still in that mindset of, you know, good kid, bad kid, pain in the butt, or just, you know, quiet kid, or they don't necessarily, or they cannot wrap their heads around neurodiversity. So when I'm responding, and sometimes a lot of the calls come in and they'll say, I have a niece who's a teenager and I think that they may be on the spectrum, but I'm not quite sure. And I just want to make sure that they're, you know, in a good place when they come to visit me. And so there's a lot of, from a caregiver's perspective and from a professional's perspective, we answer a lot of these questions, but I encourage neurodivergent individuals to just let it out, tell them exactly what is needed. I think communication is key, but some neurodivergents are not as communicative. My
Yeah.
youngest will not tell anybody he's on the spectrum. He will not be different. He will mask to conform, and it's just what it is.
And sometimes a neurodivergent person may not want to be part of the conversation, so you can give a heads up on their behalf. My partner has misophonia, which means chewing sounds are extraordinarily not just painful, but like elicit an extreme sort of fight or flight kind of response. And he uses loop earbuds that sort of mask the sound, and that's been really helpful. But sometimes he doesn't want to wear them around people because he just feels like he'll have to explain. So I do the explaining for him so that he can do it.
Good for you. And that's advocating, right? That's amazing. Okay, could you provide examples of sensory-friendly gifts that are suitable for neurodivergent individuals? Now, Kara, I'm going to let you start here because I know where you're going to go with this, and I want to hear what you think.
How do you know? I don't even know where I'm going to go with this yet.
You're going to go with fidgets.
Yes, but I do think that fidget tools, plush toys, things like that are very personal, what people respond to. But so getting a sense of what they like, I certainly know what for instance, I have nieces, and I know one of them really likes soft plushy things, soft squeezable things. So I would probably get her things like that. I know other people who like sort of visual stimulation. So maybe getting some sort of glitter jar. You can also put together a basket of a whole bunch of things, but asking them what they like, getting a sense from the parents what they like, I think is really important. Especially when it comes to textures of things. Some of us really like particular textures of fabric or particular textures of squeezables. I have a student who loves slime, and I have students who hate slime because it gets. I'm more in the camp of I don't love it, so it makes me feel a little uneasy. But yeah, really getting a sense. And you can never go wrong with special interest gifts either. If you know what they like, things related to those interests are pretty much always going to be a sure bet. I know this was about sensory friendly, but think about texture, think about sort of the weight of the object, squeezability, the prettiness. We often like things that are very visual, that have motion. Yeah, think about all of the senses, really.
Bruce?
I always struggle with this question. And honestly, there's a little, this actually is certainly my autistic response. When I've had to ask these questions, it's a little confusing because it's like, why should it be different? What if somebody is buying a gift for a younger person? The fact that they're neurodivergent or not, I think, should make no difference. It should be for what gift would they like? And I know that may not be so helpful, but I think it's also, again, that normalizing our existence, that although it's good to have that sensory friendly aspect to the gift, in other words, making sure that trying to find out if the gift that you have in mind would be upsetting to the person getting the gift, but it's also the idea of the gift is the important thing, and checking the sensory friendly aspect of it, I think, should be the secondary aspect. And honestly, this is just my opinion, and I have maybe a slightly skewed version of gifts just because of my experience. Does that all make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it does. And I agree with you. I feel like, okay, why should it be different? But again, let's talk about, let's look at the generation, like the grandparents, who may not necessarily know that their question is it's not that it's wrong, but it's, you know, why even ask the question? Why not just buy them whatever? However, I once upon a time, you know, we used to do that. We used to buy whatever, because my oldest liked to unwrap. So there were a few years in a row where we'd spend crazy amount of money just buying him stuff that he wouldn't even play with, because it was the whole unwrapping that he loved. So the following year we got a bunch of little things. I think we spent something like $50 at the dollar store, and we just wrapped every individual item, and he was happier with that than he was with the bigger items. And
He's a kitty. He's a kitty.
He wasn't much of a kitty back then. I'm thinking this is like 10 years ago, Bruce. It wasn't that long ago. But I also like the idea that, you know, when you see a child on a spectrum and they do have a special interest, whether it's Hot Wheels or Harry Potter or Super Mario, anything related to that is really good. And you'll get the parent that will say, oh, they have enough Super Mario or they have enough Harry Potter. No, someone who has a special interest in Harry Potter will take anything that's related, stickers, you know, whatever that's related to Harry Potter. And that's a great gift, and that will make them happy. Guaranteed.
You know, my brother has an extensive collection of Nintendo and Legend of Zelda t-shirts.
Wow.
It's my go-to to get him things like that. Or
Mm.
often you can use interest to branch out into other gifts. Like I've taken my brother to see the Legend of Zelda Symphony and all of these things that you know, my parents were a bit apprehensive. Oh, it's going to be such a big environment, but he loved it because it was his special interest.
Exactly.
And often like branch out into new adventures, new experiences, which I think are great. I also just want to say too, like sensory gifts are a wonderful idea too, because we often experience great sensory joy. And you know, it's possible you're going to introduce the neurodivergent person in your life to something new that they've never experienced. I had a friend who, for my birthday, she got me a couple of things, but one of them was like an amulet that has a scented pad. You can add essential oil and like, and it's just like, it's so relaxing and calming. And it's not something I ever would have thought of for myself, but I absolutely love it. And I'm so glad that she got it for me.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. That was a good question. What strategies can a caregiver use to manage their own stress while ensuring a neuro-inclusive holiday? I'm gonna answer this one last. Bruce, do you have any suggestions for people like me?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Take care of yourself. I think caregivers, and I'm going to say this as like parents and also partners of autistic individuals tend to, I think during the holiday season, they tend to try and make sure everything's okay for everybody else all the time. And I think a caregiver needs to take their own space for this as well, to make sure they're not getting too overwhelmed. Where you can take a break, take the break. If you're talking about children in a family gathering and the children are all you know, playing together and they're all playing well, take your glass of wine and enjoy that glass of wine, or your vodka, or your coffee, whatever drink you're partaking in that time. Don't try and be perfect. Honestly, I see it in my own family that our primary caregiver, aka my wife, tries so hard to make sure that everybody is having a good experience that she forgets that she also needs to have a good experience. And you know, so often holidays are about family, and so often it's just being together is the important thing. And so again, maybe relaxing expectation, allowing things to happen, you know, taking safety into account. But I think the specific thing is making sure that you are the caregiver is taking time to relax and have a break as well. That's what I'm saying to you, Dominique.
Yeah, and stress, like, we are experts at picking up other people's stress, I find. So, you know, yes, try to relax as much as you can in the holidays, and that's going to have a benefit for everyone in the family. That co-regulation piece, you know.
I have only begun, I would say the past 2 or 3 years at the most. I'm only starting to relax over the holidays. I've decided not to host anymore and just have my mom and stepdad over. But when we are out, I am such a hardcore advocate that I make sure that those around me are aware that my kids are my kids and they come first no matter what. And they're going to behave the way they're going to behave. If it's too much, let them do their thing. You know, I've done that for quite a few years where I'm at a point now where they know well enough, because I am that parent, and I'm not loved but by some, but it's just my kids come first. And if my kids aren't happy, I'm not happy, right? And they do read that body language. You're right, 100%. They can feel. They may struggle with the body language and social cues, but when it comes to the caregiver being stressed, they feel it. They feel it. And I feel that it's really important to, you know, like Bruce said, take care of yourself. Don't sweat the small stuff. If your kids, you know, have a shutdown, do what you have to do to take care of them. Don't worry about the rest. It'll work itself out. So the family around you should be aware that you know, and they should be there to support you as well. So that's just my 2 cents. And when they do, it's great.
Not having too many things in a day is really important. Graciela mentioned, like, reduce your expectations. That's going to
lower your expectations.
Don't plan so many things. Everyone needs downtime. Every single person needs, oh, doggy.
Another one. Yes, she just came in. That's my stress reliever right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oops.
I'm glad you said that, Cara, because I was going to sort of say that was the other thing too, of the don't plan 5 days. And don't plan 5 days of activities in a 5-day period.
Agreed. How can holiday traditions be adapted to be more inclusive for individuals on the autism spectrum? Traditions are unique to the family. I mean, we have our cultural traditions, and then we have our own family traditions. The cultural ones are quite loud, quite busy. And if it means having to say thanks, but no thanks, we won't attend this year, that's totally okay. But yeah, no, as far as traditions go, it is what it is. You know, traditions means that there are family, you know, there's more than just your immediate family involved. Sometimes it takes, you know, that extended family to help with those traditions. Create your own sensory-friendly traditions. I'm not sure. Cara, what do you think?
Like holiday nap, you know, that's my nap behind. I agree. Create your own traditions.
Yeah.
Find the things of the holiday that bring sensory joy, whether it's like a certain food, cooking it together, you know, making together. You know, finding decorations that are visually appealing. I think all of those things you can do in conjunction with your neurodivergent family member or child. Yes. You know, we don't have to do all of the things just because they've always been done or always have been done a certain way. I really think it always goes back to having conversations and finding out, like, what do people enjoy? What is stressful for people? how can we reduce that stress? Do we have to go to that event or not? You really like have a lot of sound sensitivities. Do you have to go and hear the music? You know, hear the choir, whatever it is. I think you can build traditions together.
Bruce?
I was going to use the word negotiation, in that I think this is something struggling with my family is, my family had holiday traditions before I joined the family, and some of them are things that I don't understand, and some of the things that I find difficult to be involved with. But there's some things that I, completely happy with. So we've negotiated that the especially my wife's traditions, they keep those up, because it's very important to them. And I just don't participate in everything and in a limited way. So I'm trying to honor that relationship and the tradition, without being too overwhelmed. And that's something that we've built on over the last 10 to 12 years. I would also like to say that I think it's important, the allies and autistic people, to negotiate and challenge those cultural traditions in the big picture. And I'm thinking very specifically from my tradition, the Christmas Eve, going to church on Christmas Eve. And I'm not saying, I'm just using this as an example, but sometimes it's worth talking to the people who organize these events and seeing if there is a way that they can become more inclusive without destroying the tradition. In other words, I think it's completely fine to challenge them, because what you're doing is pointing out that a lot of these quite traditional activities are exclusive. They actually exclude a number of people because of sensitivities or a whole bunch of different reasons. And that always can be gently challenged. So for the internal family tradition, make your own, negotiate. That's a lot easier. But also go out and maybe challenge the community ones as well. Just to sort of see what sort of things can be thought of. And I'm thinking, like, Autism Canada has been part of designing some sensory-friendly big cultural events in the city and which I live, and they've been very, very successful. And if we don't sort of start looking at these things and challenging why is it necessary for this to be always in one way, they're never going to be changed. There's my political speech for this 5-minute section.
Thank you both very much. What are some tips for creating a safe, comfortable space and safe and comfortable spaces for individuals who might experience sensory overload during holiday events? We kind of covered that, I think, in our first question.
But I would say quiet, low lighting, comfortable blankets and throws, things like that. I love the idea you had, Dominique, about like bring your own tent. Yeah. Or even, designing. And I remember there's one time where Kedem was very young and his senses are heightened across the board. And we brought him to, for him to decompress, we brought him to a bedroom just for a few minutes, just so he can calm down, which is great that the bedroom was available, but the coats were all on the bed and the smells from all of the different perfumes, and like it was 10 times worse. So if you can find a space that isn't really being used, and just make that your kind of that home plate, when you do see that things start to rise, that it's a safe space to bring your child, or for yourself, just kind of figure out where that location is in the house and make your way there as many times as you need to. And clarity, being very clear with the neurodivergent person about where they like they clarity is kindness, as Brene Brown says, but it's no.
Agreed. Bruce?
Sorry, Carrie, I was also going to encourage that when you're going to an event, a gathering, start, if it's a child or an autistic adult, start with them being the first thing they do to go in the sensory space so that they can be at a nice base level at the start of the event. Because otherwise it'll be very difficult to engage them, to use some code words.
Agreed. Could you speak to the importance of routines, even at Christmas? How would you explain this to parents? Oh boy. Bruce, you go first.
Okay. Boy, routines, how important. Routines are always important for autistic individuals. Sorry, shouldn't be generalizing, but for most autistics, routines are important. We also are aware that a routine may not always happen because of various things, whether it's a weather-related event or whether it's, you know, going to somebody else's house and something may need to change. So importance of the routines are good. If there is a routine that may be difficult to do in a new environment, maybe pick another, see if there can be a parallel routine that can be done to help the person with the idea of what's going on. So if it's something that must be done while every time they enter a room, you know, make sure that that's something that can be done. If it's it's also it's a good idea to talk to the autistic individual before you go and do something about what's going to happen, so that little internal routine, sorry, Dominique, you can use, is it then and?
First and then.
First and then. That sort of idea. First, you're going to do this, then you're going to do that. First, you're going to do this, then you can do that. That sort of setting up that activity routine can be really, really super useful. And especially if something looks like that is going to break, make sure you can communicate that before it happens. Sorry, that didn't make sense. If let's say there's 4 things that you've told the autistic individual are going to happen, but because of something, the 4th event's not going to happen, make sure you tell them before that it's not just a surprise. I'm stumbling on words tonight. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I totally agree. I think preparation is important because we are out of routines a lot. We are out of routine often during the holidays. So talking in advance about what's happening when, having like a calendar of anything new that they might not expect, reviewing the day before. So the plan for tomorrow is this, this, and this. As Bruce said too, preparing them for any expectations that they might not know how to deal with. Like, you know, if you're going to a family member's house and you know that they're serving food sort of in a style where people serve themselves, like just talking about, you know, if your child's never done that before, talking about, okay, you don't take everything on the plate, like you take a little bit of different dishes and you leave some for other people and you can go back for seconds later. Like going through those sort of hidden rules that they might not know or they might never have practiced can be really important.
Okay. Very routine, regimented children, especially my oldest. And oftentimes we have events, for example, they love to go tobogganing, they love to go sledding, they love the Christmas parade, you know, and a lot of these events are based on weather. It's unpredictable because you never know what the weather is going to be like. So when we prepare to go, okay, Saturday morning, so Christmas Eve is our toboggan day. We go tobogganing every Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, if, you know, the weather permits, we're going to go tobogganing. But if we don't go because it's wet or it's raining, that's going to be okay, right? Because we're going to do something else. And you'll get to choose what that activity is. That'll be your choice. And that'll be as reinforcement for not being overly disappointed because the weather's not permitting us to go tobogganing on Christmas Eve. So it's always important to have, one, a backup plan, two, give them the opportunity, empower them by giving them an opportunity to replace that predicted activity with something else, something of their choosing, and go with it, no matter how extreme, if you can. Because that will teach them that it's okay for change. It's okay that the routine is breaking or broken up in some way, shape, or form because it's something out of your control. But there's always something else that can replace that. And it's usually good, right? So,
and
that's my
in the
opinion.
spirit of the question too, like routine is very important. Things that are predictable help us to get through, and they can help us cope when new things come up. Having a familiar framework, so whatever you can keep consistent, do your best to keep consistent. That's going to help everyone get through. And to know what's coming next, like that, I think that's one of the most important things that we've all said, is that predictability piece.
Mhm.
Just before we go on, sorry, Dominique, could we just go back? I just saw in the chat, Graciela, this is a question from you. Did we answer that question? Did we answer the question that you asked?
No, 100%, because the parent forgot the kid have routines, because after that the kid is have burnout, no, shutdown,
Meltdown.
is
Mhm.
a lot of cry for 3 days, 4 days. I think it's because they change in the routine, a lot of music, a lot of people in the small place. So it's for that I ask how I can explain to the parent the kid need routine, even if it's Christmas time, because it's a bad time for the kid.
Yes.
You understand?
Mhm.
Well, I think you can say what you just said to us too. When things are extremely unpredictable, it is stressful. And this might look like, and describe what it looks like. Say things that really help the child to cope are when we try to keep consistency, explain well in advance, make sure there are opportunities for breaks. These are things that are going to help the child to be successful.
And by setting, Graciela, by setting the expectations through advocacy, through talking to these parents, you are speaking on behalf of the child, and you are providing that child with the support that they need through communicating, like through, and it's okay to just say, this is what the child needs, whether it's your child or someone else's, they need that routine. If you don't give them that routine, then, like, let's say, for example, if it was me and my kid, and we were going to an event and they decided to add 35 more people to the event, like they've done to Bruce, I'll say, I'm sorry, that does not allow my child to psychologically prepare themselves for that kind of sensory overstimulation, but we will go another time when it's quiet. This is what I expect. If you can't support me and my family through these very basic suggestions that we have in order for for our visit to be a good one, then I'm sorry, we can't come. You'll have to come and visit us. It's just one of those things. You have to advocate. And if they're not receptive to that, then it's okay to be with an itch and say, sorry, we're not going.
And I think what Graziella was asking was, she's noticing another family struggling with this, and
Yeah.
it's affecting their child. So yeah, giving your best advice and just saying, I've noticed this. He might have an easier time if you tried this.
Mhm.
And hopefully they receive that message. Like, hopefully they've noticed how stressful it is. Fingers crossed. Ugh.
It's too bad. All right, we're going to go on to the next one. How would you know if you need a break before you melt down? Could you provide any scripts to excuse yourself for a break? That's a Cara and Bruce question.
Sometimes I don't know until I really, really need.
Yeah. Do you feel
That-
it coming on? Do you feel it coming on?
Oh, I definitely remember last holiday, like it was almost like I stopped hearing, like I could just hear, I couldn't hear anything specific, just everything. I was really in my head and I was feeling like I was internally screaming. Like I was like, ah, like I was so agitated. I think I even told Bruce about it the next day.
You did.
Remember?
You-
And I was just so, yeah, everything sort of just hit me all at once. I think generally though, because my family and my friends are very understanding, I actually have no problem. I realized even before my diagnosis that I would self-break without realizing that was what I was doing. So if I had people over and I was playing board games, I would get up and just be like, I have to go like check on the cats or whatever. And I would go and cuddle my cat for a few minutes. And I realized later I was giving myself a break. Like that wasn't about the cat. It was about me needing quiet for a little bit and needing a bit of so you know, you could always, if this is something you're self-conscious about, you could come up with some reasons to get up and leave. That could be a bathroom break. You know, a lot of people take a break just by going to the bathroom. It could be maybe you take some dishes to the kitchen and you linger there longer than you have to, you know, leave the space where people are. I think if maybe that's something to prepare in advance, like a few statements or activities that you could do that take you out of the room. Or just explain to people, I might need a few minutes.
I need to process. That's the one that I'm familiar with. I need to process. Give me a minute. And then they're gone. And that's okay. That's okay. Bruce, do you need to process?
No, this is actually like the first part of this question is incredibly complex. And it's something I'm dealing with discussing, talking to autistic adults, actually neurodivergent adults. It is it's a lifelong check-in about about a meltdown. And each individual is going to be different. And as we get more mature and get more used to our experience, it becomes a little easier to know when it's coming on. But that's a tricky question. The second one, the scripts, to be honest, I'm very open about my autism with everybody I meet. And quite often I will tell the spoon story, the spoon theory, and then just say, I need a spoon break.
I don't explain what spoons are.
Well, right now?
Yes.
Oh, very quickly, it's an idea that each activity that anybody does takes a number of spoons, and that a neurotypical person has this many spoons, but neurodivergent people only have this many spoons, and perhaps each activity takes more spoons. And once you have the metaphor, it's a really, we use it in our family all the time. Very often our kids will text us on the way home from school saying out of spoons. That's all, which means they're going to come home, they're going to shut their bedroom door. We know they're safe, we know that they're healthy, they've just had an overwhelming day. And once they've recovered, we can go and talk to them. So for me, I'm very open about it. But I think Kara's brought up the bathroom break. That's a very common one in schools, especially.
Yep.
You know, I'm not sure if there's any mothers on here with autistic children, but as a mom, I see it. I see it. It's coming. In French, we say sabrou, sabrou, means it's brewing, you know, from the feet all the way up to the face, that they're ready for a shutdown. And my job as a caregiver is to sometimes let them have it because they need it, and sometimes talk them off the ledge and bring them back down teaching them how to self-regulate. But in order to learn how to self-regulate, they have to experience those meltdowns or those shutdowns, or they have to go through it. And it's hard because as a parent, I just want to hug them and tell them everything's going to be okay, but they need to learn how to navigate that. So that's also very, very difficult to, watch a loved one, and I've seen Bruce, I adore Bruce. Bruce is one of my best friends, and I've seen him kind of go through a shutdown, and he just needed, so I'm like, take the day, do what you got, self-regulate, go for a walk on the beach, whatever. And it's very hard for a neurotypical to see their loved one, whether it's a child, a friend, an adult, a spouse, go through this. It's very difficult, but it's important to kind of stay in tune as well, to stay close and talk them through it.
And always worth the conversation later once everyone is calm too, to work on like identifying what were the body clues, what were the changes that happened, because often we struggle with interoception, which is like the ability to identify the feeling going on in your body. And that can be an emotions feeling. It could even be for some of our people, it could even be like having stomach aches. We might not know that we feel sick necessarily, and we just suddenly we're very grumpy. So we don't always localize and be able to identify feelings. So part of it is building that somatic awareness. What does this feel like in your body? What are the changes that are signals that your emotions are building? Because once you're sort of in the meltdown mode, like there's no logical thinking. There's no ability to use strategies at that point. Learn how to intervene earlier. And so that you can build that through conversations and growing awareness. But often, you as a caregiver, parent, partner of someone who's neurodivergent, you might be able to tell more quickly than the person that they're getting upset.
Yeah, I need to completely validate what Cara said. My wife can pick it up often quicker than I can, but can't pick up the intensity. So my wife will often say, that you seem off or something, and it could be, I could have been minutes away from a meltdown, or I could be like a couple of hours away from a meltdown, and it's always appreciated, always.
And it's again, no matter who it is in my circle, when you don't know what to do, it's hard, especially if they cannot communicate because they don't feel like they're there yet, but we know that they're there. So this is a really difficult question to answer. There's no scripts, just be honest. And if the individual who's on the spectrum can communicate their needs, encourage them to do that, because sometimes as a caregiver, we don't know what to do, and it's scarier than the actual meltdown itself.
Actually, sorry.
Okay.
You've actually raised an interesting thing. This is perhaps where I would, from an adult perspective, or even let's say an older teen perspective, I have an app. When I'm in a meltdown, very often I will lose the ability to speak. So I do have an app that instantly comes up and sort of says, I'm struggling, and can you communicate with this? Perhaps having a little an app or a card or something on the autistic person, so that if it's happening, we can give somebody something saying, I'm okay, but this is what's happening to me, and I need the space. That's it. Perhaps what app?
I've heard of one called Leeloo, Leeloo. I don't know if it's free or paid, but I've heard of that one. What do you use, Bruce?
Just excuse me for a second. I'll get my phone and find out.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really important tip, because I think everyone, autistic or not, when you are really upset, we all kind of lose the ability to use language. but that can kick in much sooner for neurodivergent folks. And it can last longer. It can be hard to put your ideas into words, can be hard to even know what's going on in your own head, and then be able to translate that into words for somebody else to understand is really difficult and impossible at times.
That's why I like having my card that I had made up, just because I didn't have to say anything to anybody.
Nice.
My kid didn't even need to know that we were, you know, communicating or explaining things, but also to advocate and teach that maybe they don't know what's going on, but this is why. And maybe if you want to check out these websites, they might be able to help you understand better for the next time.
And just to give Katrina's comment some context, Katrina had posted in the chat earlier about making up business cards that explained like, this is sensory overload. Which then again, I love that idea because it does remove the need to have to like say more, especially if you're out in public, the need to say anything in front of your child or your partner about what's going on for them. It like removes that factor. And like you said, it builds awareness. It builds, you know, you also said this, we should never have to change ourselves for the world. We need to change the world for us. And I think that's just a beautiful and very true sentiment.
I'm very much a typer, not so much a talker. So sorry.
Bruce also put in the chat the name of the app that he uses called Emergency Chat.
It's free.
Nice. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, we could talk a lot about meltdowns because this is a big topic and not always just about the holidays.
Yep.
Possibly. So if anyone here or after they viewed this video once it's posted, if they have any questions, feel free to write to us at info@autismcanada.org. And if it's from the speaker series, then I will certainly share the email with both Bruce and Cara, and we can answer them as a team. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see some faces here. There we go. Yeah, no, this is I like this one. I think it's important. Didn't have to do with formal documentation like the IEPs, but I feel like these candid, relaxed, but important conversations need to happen frequently.
I like it.
Yeah, so I think perhaps next year we can look at doing them more often, even if it's pre-recorded and shared on our new website, which is going through the process of an overhaul, and we're going to have a special spot on our website just for these. So that is important. But no, if anyone has any, is there anything in the chat that we haven't answered? Bruce or Cara?
Haven't seen other questions.
No.
Any questions?
Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? No. Okay. Well, thank you for joining today's session. We appreciate some of you who have been here more than once. Wishing you all a happy holiday season. And if there's anything we can do to support you, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Yay.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Feliz Navidad.
Gracias.
Yes. There we go. Woo.
Bah.
You want to stop recording?
Okay.